Let's say I come to you and I say, you want the chewing gum? Who takes the chewing gum?
Take it for later.
Okay, who takes it and uses it?
Why you eating?
Why wouldn't you? Let's jump into the action because I want to walk you through my thought progress. Let's take a look at yesterday. And I want to really point out one person, which is this guy. This was basically the cash game where we started to invite new people. I want to walk you specifically here through my thought progress, just so you get a feeling of what I feel and what I think on a poker table. Let's take a look at this guy. He walks in, sits down. The first thing that I notice, what are the people that we have to know at best? 2 people to the left and 2 people to the right. So he basically sits down in a spot where I have to be extremely careful. I see this and I'm looking at him and I'm scanning him. Complete scan of what is my first impression of the person. As you know, I was a dating and relationship coach. So we do this subconsciously when we walk on a date, for example. It takes us less than a second to get a first impression of the person. And you can train this instinct. When you go on a date or also when you meet a new person, it takes you less than a second to scan through that person. You say, what's your first impression? The first impression is done in less than a second. So you know it. When people say, oh, I don't know, it's probably not the best first impression. For example, if I go on a date, I also ask this, well, what's your first impression of me? Or maybe later on I say, what was your first impression? Just so I get a little bit of a feeling of how does she felt before, how does she feel now? The first impression is very instinctive. So I see this here and I scan completely through. What was one thing that I noticed, you think? It's hard to see, but if you sat on the table, Johan, Philip, Hampus, Spiros, and Samuel, was there one thing that you noticed right away when this guy sat down?
The other players don't look at him.
Johan, I think, looks at him. Philip looks at him. Samuel. But look at me. I'm instantly on. Anyone that noticed something? Something not poker related. He didn't even play a single hand. He just sat down. First impression.
Tattoos with purple things everywhere.
Did you hear this? The tattoos. He had a PokerStars logo. He had poker symbols. He was completely tattooed. So why do the tattoos matter? You might say, Karim, why should I even care about tattoos?
He's been playing poker for years, obviously.
Is that a good sign or a bad sign?
He has experience, that's for sure.
That's what you might think. If you play online poker and you have someone like Poker Master 3000, #1 player in the world, if that's your screen name, you're probably not a good poker player. I hope you know that. So the best poker players that you play against, they either push them down a little bit, or they don't carry this so obvious into the world. And of course, there are always exceptions to everything that I say. That's why people on Instagram always text me, I saw your reel today and I cannot relate, and in my casino it's the opposite. Yes, of course, man, but I have a hit rate of 70 or 80%. Every single week I get those people in my DMs. Karim, the real and blah, 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 blah. Yes, I know. People don't fully understand this, so there's always an exception. But if I see a person with tattoos, I'm always very cautious, because maybe from his own perspective he thinks he's good, and maybe it's his passion. Maybe it's not because he thinks he's a good player, but just he loves poker. We all love poker, so we can relate to it. But if you take a look at Triton events, I don't see many people have complete 10 tattoos of poker on there. It's very rarely. It's the same, let's link it back to dating, because I know some of you guys are interested in this as well. If a guy goes on a date with a girl and he says, girl, if you spend the night with me, you will not forget it. This will be the night of your life. You probably know that you will forget this very fast this night, yeah? So if you're a guy who wants to show people how good you are, probably means you have a little bit of a deficit. That's how we call it, a deficit in a certain area. Just talking about dating and relationships. And that means you have to over brag about it. And that's also, by the way, when I started hanging out with people who have a lot of money, they didn't talk about this. You know, the wealthiest people that I ever spent time with, they didn't even talk about money. Never. You know that I met Ben on a seminar. So I was giving a seminar, and then Ben and I, we had a conversation, and Ben invited me to a steak restaurant. It was a super expensive steak restaurant. And I was looking at the menu and like, okay, I have to spend some money tonight. And he's like, it's all on me, you know that, right? Because you spent basically like the evening with me. All right, super. He never asked for money back or anything. He's like, yeah, it's fine. Wealthy people don't talk about money. People with a good dating life don't talk about dating. The only reason why I do it is because I want to show you how everything is connected. But you never see me like, oh, look at this girl. And some people do this. People with a good physique, who have good nutrition, of course, they talk about it when you ask them, but for them it's normal. Your alarm bell should ring if someone, look at this, look at that. Your alarm bell should ring. So let's go back to the situation. I just want to give you the full picture here. That's also what I would like to see from you in the future. A new player sits down and you start to scan this person right away. You want to look at everything, the tattoos, the card protector, how he places his chips, everything. So let's take a look what I do versus what he does. I'm scanning him and he's just like, oh, cool. Hello, hello, hello. Perfect. And what was one thing that I also saw right away? Look at his face and his chin. What does he have in his mouth? Latest then I knew we have a VIP customer, because a chewing gum is literally the fastest way for you to lose your money.
I know it because I played against him in a tournament. If he was in a grave situation, he started biking way faster. Or if he have a very strong hand, he stopped.
This is not the only guy who we saw similar patterns with. We saw this exact pattern so many times. So a chewing gum is a clear no. A clear no. Never, 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 never chewing gum on the poker table. Romke said this to me yesterday. It was a genius idea. I never thought about it, to be honest. But maybe for the future, if you want to be really sneaky, you take a full pack of chewing gums. You say like, hey guys, hello, you want to have chewing gums? And you know the whole table. That's a little bit in the gray area, I would say. It's not illegal, but if you want to have a little bit of fun and you want to try something new, let's go back. Let's take a look what he does. We just focus on him. Queen 7 suited and he limps. Look at the chewing gum. He's chewing quite fast. Let's take a look at Yuan. Punishes the limpers. Love to see that. Philip, ace 5 suited. Just calls. Could also be a 4-bet candidate. I think calling is also okay. So he calls the raise, which I'm always thinking, which good poker player limps and then calls? There are some, for sure, but I think not many. So we have the tattoos, we have the chewing gum, we have the limp and the call. 3 check marks already. Let's take a look at what else we see. And Hampus, first thing we need to talk about. By now you should have information on Yuan already. If he has a tell, you should know. If Philip has a tell, you should also know. So who is more important than those two that you already saw many, many hours before? The person who is A next to you and B has 3 check marks already. At this point, I don't even look at Philip and I don't even look at Yuan. I just need, that's the guy that I need to see. Cool. Let's take a look what happens on the flop. Always pay attention to the chin. I don't see much chewing now. So let's take a look what this means. There is a pattern. We want to understand the pattern. Let's see. Ray coming on the table, distracting us even more. That's what I meant with all the distractions and everything. He's like, oh, I have to tell you about this hand. Of course, I was interested to hear what happened to Ray, but this game was so chaotic. That's a perfect example. I'm thinking at this situation, of course, it's important to hear what Ray was talking. I also need to focus on our VIP. So let's take a look. Mateusz not paying attention. I don't like it. After everything we just said. Check. You want to see every single movement. He checks with the fist and he checks 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times. 4 times this movement. A little bit of like knocking with the fist. So we have a 4 times knocking movement. These are the fine little things that you want to focus on. Not just like, oh yeah, he checked. Difference. You have the knocking movement. You have pushing the button. I use the knife, as I call it. The full knife, you have the half knife as well. You have double push, you have 1 push, you have the knock, you have many things. Some people have this slap on the shoulder. So different checks, not a lot of people can teach you those things because they're like, oh yeah, and he checks. No, there's more to a check. Because what happens, let's say 10 times he checks like the knocking, and then the 11th time he's doing the knife. Knife like this or this. Different check. So there is something different in the hand. And it's your job, your responsibility to figure out what was it, what's different now. These are the small things that you need to really pay attention to. So let's take a look. Check, check, check. Ace. Yuan. Bets. Good Yuan. With the chin to Philip. Philip calls. This is what I want to see. Yuan, you're a little bit looking in the wrong direction. But Philip, exactly this is what I want to see. So the chewing stopped for a second. It went faster than it stopped. And this is the normal pace. And why do we know that this is the normal pace? Let's take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4. Every second, basically. Why is this the default movement?
He's not playing a hand or something like that.
Yes. So just think about this logically. From a psychological perspective, let's say you would have a technical thing that measures your stress, your cortisol, stress spikes in your blood system. When would those spikes happen? Which moment in the hand? When would it happen? Let's walk it through from pre-flop. Let's say you have aces. Everyone knows the feeling of having aces.
When you never see the cards.
When you see the cards, you check the cards, heart rate goes up, spike. Then you see the action. Let's say you have aces, someone raises, and there's a free bet. Spike even more, because that's the jackpot. Let's say you're on the button, so second spike. So then you put the chips in, 4-bet, let's say. Heart goes up, fold, fold, first person folds, the guy who 3-betted calls you, another spike. Then the flop, when the dealer lays out the cards. Let's say there's an ace. Would go down, because you probably know you have it. Rainbow and you have an ace, top set, rainbow, no draws available, probably pretty good. If it's very draw heavy board, stress goes up. So you want to think this through. So how do we know that this is his default? Because it just folded, and let's say you fold the hand, the system goes down to default again. So that's why we know this is probably his default pace. So every time he goes faster or slower, that's a deviation from his default state, and therefore we want to understand why does he do that? And this was basically the third or fourth hand we saw from this guy. And that's all I'm thinking on the poker table by now. Do you see how much my brain is like brrrr all the time? Queen 7 was a limp. He has king check offsuit now. What does he do? Raises to 12, which is 6 big blinds. Aha, different strategy now. Could there be a different hand strength, maybe? Okay. Philip folds, Samuel folds, Spiros sleeping, folds, Mateusz. Check 9 offsuit, folds. Another lesson, why raising so big makes no sense. Plus, unfortunately, no one pays attention to it. But what's going on here? Completely stopped. He folds and what does he do? Stress is still up and then it continues. Normal pace. You see this? Prime example. I'm not even on the table and I remember that he had a tell with the chewing gum. That's what I'm thinking on the poker table all the time. So I'm picking again a person and then I analyze this person to complete detail. And that's why my clients who work with me for a long time, who play live poker, if you know all these things, how can you not be a winning player in live poker? It's literally unavoidable to make a shit ton of money. Hampus raises to 7, calls. Unfortunately, we don't see how he calls, but let's take a look. Same movement, knocking, chewing is going on, slower pace, but still chewing. Hampus not seeing it, not paying attention. I don't like it. Hampus focus on the board. Just focus on chewing going on, maybe a little bit faster than usual. Hampus bets 4, calls 4. King, knock movement again. Hampus not paying attention, check, gets there. Up, from knocking to pushing. This is not knocking, this is pushing. Probably he thinks that Hampus is under the gun, doesn't have so many sixes, he checked back the king. Probably ace 4 is good. That's what he is thinking, maybe. These are just guesses that we want to see later on. Now he stops the chewing. So we want to connect the puzzle pieces here. This is just what we saw. Could also be that Hampus checked back the king, of course. Maybe he just felt more confident. Because you also, and this is the most confusing thing of everything that I said, we always want to understand this person and what he is capable of. Maybe he thinks Hampus could check back a king, but some people would never check back a king. So they don't even think about this move. They're like, if I have a king, I always bet. There was also, I think, on the first day, I had a straight on the turn and I checked back the straight. And then I trapped my opponent on the river. It was that's why he's laughing. And basically he bet into me on the river. And I had the nuts basically. So some people can check back a straight. Some people are like, if I have a straight, I don't even think about checking back. You want to build a pot and so on. So every tell we have is only complete if we understand how good our opponent plays and what he's capable of doing. If people play trappy, then they also think about certain movements, they think about ranges. But some people, they just think, I have ace 4 offsuit and I just play exactly my hand. Ranges? I have to play my range? What exactly do you mean with I have to? I don't even know what my range is. You laugh, but I have people who are in this coaching, they work with me for 2 weeks and like, Karim, you always talk about ranges when we do this live poker analysis. What exactly is a range? Maybe you can start with this. Okay, let's start with ranges. Let's start with ranges. Step number 1. This is also just to make it complete, right? Because some people, they also ask me this weekend, how does it look if we work together? Is it live tells, mindset? So of course we have mindset because I think that's super important. And that's also why Ray was standing out to me yesterday. He busted 3 bullets. He was super positive afterwards. Mindset work, perfect. But we also talk about live tells. But live tells are only complete if you also understand strategy. So if I cannot teach you the full idea of live tells without you understanding ranges, what your opponent is capable of, the tattoo, screen names and everything. So you get the full thing here. And this package is extremely unique because you also have people who just be really good with strategy, but they don't even see the chewing gum. They just, he checks, but why does he sometimes do this and then this? With the chewing gum, with the tattoos. So you have to see the full picture. And that's really, really complicated. I know if you don't see those things, it's a little bit tricky. So what do I do here?
You ask for information.
I ask for information. That's really good. A little bit more specific. What could I ask here? I give you a little tip. Everyone thinks about poker, and the hand and ace-4 and everything. One hand alone never gives us all the information we need. Sometimes they play a hand completely different to all the patterns we saw before. And then you might get confused because, but I thought when he goes faster with the chewing gum, this means that, and when he goes slow, this means that. And then he does the exact opposite. So then you get completely confused. So one hand means nothing. We always need multiple confirmations. Why should I then ask about the hand? Makes no sense. This one hand, I don't care. So what else? Do you remember it? I ask where he's from. Could this be a bigger meaning? Every information is really valuable. You want to connect the dots and you want to build a profile of that person. I ask him where you're from. It's a very simple question, small talk, correct? But I don't really care where he's from. I just want to understand how he's thinking and how he carries himself. Same as with a date. There are certain check marks on a date that I also want to have on a date to figure out how cool the person is, how good I vibe with that person. So I want to understand what the person is. But I would be stupid to ask this person directly, do you do this? Do you do that? Because of course, everyone, we learned about this, wants to portray himself as the best version. So if I ask you, do you have a lot of money? Yes, I have a lot of money. No matter how much money you have, you probably say yes, especially on a date. Why would you say no? You're stupid if you say no. So of course, you just always portray the best version of yourself. I want to be a little bit sneaky here. I say like, where you from? He says to me, I'm from... Yes.
Doesn't match anything for us.
Exact, yes. Yes.
New proofs.
The answer was so shocking for me because it didn't match anything of what he portrays. He was literally from... I'm like, what? Sorry, what? From... Okay. And where do you live? I said, next, Vienna. Cool, I'm also from Vienna. Cool. So you speak German? Yes, nice. And then we had the next hand. So I was like, okay, he's a soft guy and probably a super nice guy. And if you just see him without this, and that's why talking is so important. I said this yesterday. Talking is so important to figure out information about your opponent. If I wouldn't ask him where you're from, I wouldn't even know this soft voice and this soft tone. He's probably the nicest guy that you ever find in this casino, the way he was talking. Caring and loving and super nice. If you just see the tattoos, wow. Don't want to talk with you. Simple question gave me a completely different shift of who that person was. So it's not just about the cards and the tails and everything. This is the key principles of live poker, exploitative and mastering outplaying your opponents. We will continue this, of course, in the coaching itself, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a taste of, first of all, what it looks like to work with me for those who don't, for those who already work with me, to make you even more interested in the future calls that we have. For the future, pay attention to those things, and maybe you want to ask a few more questions and then get a full picture of your opponents and how to exploit them. So we just saw 5 hands. Of course, you cannot say much from 5 hands because we have different ideas, different movements, different tells. We want to figure out what does the knocking mean, the finger, the chewing gum. We have to connect the dots. So we need to see more hands. But I just want to walk you through the whole process here. I could also look at the hand specifically, but I think it's more important to see how I get all of this information with asking questions, observing this opponent. He limps sometimes, then he raises. What does he do? I don't really care about, oh, would you call here on the river? It's a good question, but I want to get a feeling of that person first. The reason why I'm not doing this because most of you already know. You work with me. I know your deepest secrets. You guys tell me secrets that you don't even tell your wife. So of course I don't even have to ask you. But a new person, more interesting, because then we can sneak our way in to get all this information. That's the thought progress here. And of course, now you understand why this analysis will take us 3 to 4 months to really analyze 3 full days of playing live poker, because I really go into details and I walk you through the whole process here. Last thing that Ray also said, once you crack a person, this tell stays probably for a long time. So then you have the person and then you can just turn on the money printing machine and print.